As I start my first slide, there's a question to all of you. And this is very important because that forms the crux of our work. Is there anyone amongst you in this audience who has not experienced the pain, emotional or physical, of an accident involving oneself, an associate, a relation, or a co-worker? Believe me, all the talks that I've given, I've never come across an Indian who's not felt this pain. Anyone amongst the audience? Okay, the silence tells you the enormity of the problem. I'll try to define it in some simple ways. Since I comprehended reading a newspaper as a child every day, every morning I woke up to this picture on the headlines of every national daily, whether it was Hindustan Times, a Hindu, the Times of India, or a vernacular daily. Every day, every morning, this picture came up on the first page of a newspaper. A Boeing going down in the Indian Ocean. That's the number of lives we lose in road traffic accidents every day in India. That's 350 and more. We see ambulances, we use them. You might have sometime. They are multitasking vehicles in India. They carry patients, they carry passengers, they carry dead bodies, they even carry food. This is one of my favorite snaps. Great upholstery, good curtains, tinted glass, a settee there. When I asked the owner who is standing there, why have these things in an ambulance? He had a very easy and simple explanation. 5 days in a week, I use this as an ambulance. Saturday and Sunday, I use it for picnics in schools. That's our ambulances in India. Until something else happened to us. August 99, raining heavily, 1:30 at night, we had a crash. Me, my wife sitting there, and 2 of my friends. For 4.5 hours, we lay on the road, nobody to help us. For every vehicle that I tried to stop. This is a dramatization by the Films Division of India, which did a documentary on our work. 4.5 hours I tried to stop a vehicle. I was the only one who could walk around, and nobody stopped. Till early hours of morning, a milkman. This accident happened 21 kilometers from Baroda on National Highway 8, India's busiest highway connecting Delhi and Bombay. This is where Amul, the milk sit is. And this milkman, carrying cans of milk, stopped, took a look at us, and tried to stop a vehicle at the break of dawn. This was the times when there were no cell phones. India did not have 4-lane highways. The Golden Quadrilateral was just being conceived by Mr. Vajpayee, the then Prime Minister. Brave guy, he put his vehicle across the road so that a bus had to stop. The only regret we have in our work, frankly speaking, is that we never bothered to take his name in that crisis. He's a man who should have got a Red and Bravery award that we got. The bus took me to a police station. Very disheveled policeman, early morning hours, very reluctant to respond. Finally did. And we finally reached home, 21 kilometers away from the accident site in 6 hours. We survived despite all this and would have continued with life. But then my wife had different ideas, She made a statement when we were in hospital, and she said, we were lucky to be alive. Let us ensure others do not die on highways. When I look at it in hindsight, it's a very epoch-making statement. For all that credit that I get, for all the awards and times that I get invited to speak to a lovely audience like you, it's she and my son Shrikant sitting there who should get the credit, because they give me a reason to fight one more day. And I thank them immensely for it. Having got the background of our story, this is what the story is. It's about catalyzing an EMS in India. EMS is Emergency Medical Services, if you look at it that way. It's just not about an ambulance. It's something beyond it. It's an entire system that works from the time you see an incident, which could be an accident, a cardiac arrest, a lady going into labor pain. You call up a dispatch center, a control room, which dispatches an ambulance appropriate to your needs. It could be an advanced life support ambulance for a cardiac case, a trauma ambulance for an accident case. The ambulance reaches the site, the paramedic assesses the situation, picks the victim up, provides treatment on the way, and gets them admitted to a definitive care center. This entire range of activities, the gamut of activities, is EMS, and that's what we catalyzed. I have a confession to make here. When Sushmita said that we needed to do something about it, the earlier statement that you heard, my response was, let us donate an ambulance to the site where there's been an accident. That was the easy way out. She was very adamant, in fact. And I always tell people, to those who are married, if you don't have an adamant wife, you are unlucky. And if those who are getting married, make sure you get an adamant girl. Really helps in life. Sushmita did that to me. Her idea was to make something that's durable, something that is sustainable, something that could initiate change. So we put our heads together. And for the 4 things came up, 4 issues. Where do we get permission? Where do we get the resources? How do we find a victim who's calling up or some passerby calling up where the accident is? Because on the highways you don't have GPS, the trucks won't have GPS, no way to identify where the site is. And how do you convince hospitals to go around taking patients? Our first job was the hardest, getting permission. Since we are children in India, we are all taught accident cases are police cases. So we went to the police authorities. Extremely nice guys, but they said, how can you go and save an accident victim in Ahmedabad, in Pune, in Jaipur, sitting in Baroda? This is not your work, this is our work. Ambulances, go to the health department. So we go to the health authorities. Again, very nice people in the bureaucracy. They tell us, it's not your work. But our work is not also to run ambulances. Our work is to look at sanitization, immunization, primary health centers, civil hospitals. The ambulances we have is for us, not for the highways. They sent us to the road builders. The road builders had the similar things to say. We build highways, safety is our mandate, but we are not going to operate ambulances the way you want them to be operated. And that's where we were again sent back to the police. But we didn't give up the dream. 2 years of frustration, we finally sent a fax, a 33-page fax, to the Prime Minister's residence. I don't know where we got the number from, I don't remember, but we did. Something must have happened because we met 2 very enterprising gentlemen, the National Highway Authority of India, who understood the significance of our work and gave us the permission. And believe me, the only permission we required is to put up the signages on the highways, because nothing in the country can stop you from saving an accident victim. The resources were the next constraint. If I come to someone in the audience and say, I need an ambulance, 5 of you will get together and donate me an ambulance. But if I go every year and say, please give me the money to run that ambulance, you would say, give the donation back. So then we thought of networking the existing facilities instead of creating infrastructure, which is the easy way out in a resource-strapped country. Maintaining infrastructure is more difficult. We started networking the existing infrastructure. So every ambulance on the highway, it could be run by a charitable trust, it could be a civil hospital, the fire services, we started networking them. We started upgrading them with local donations. We started training their manpower and created a network for a pilot project with Baroda and Surat and Ahmedabad, Baroda being center in Gujarat, 261 kilometers, networking fire services, ambulances, hospitals. This is a picture of one of our boards on India's first national expressway connecting Ahmedabad to Baroda. The significance of this number is that there have been numbers on highways in Maharashtra and other places in Orissa, but this was the first number in the country that was the same common number across the state for all highways. It was a universal access number that we created so that a person traveling from one highway to another did not have to remember different numbers. This is a photograph of the first control room in the country run either by government or in a private sector or in the non-profit sector, which was exclusively for highway accidents. 24/7 it responded to accidents, including even if a tanker went ablaze in fire, we could rally fire services, hazardous material experts, everything. It still runs. As we started working, one thing led to another, and we realized that we were fortunate and blessed enough to do some nation-changing work. But there was a huge element of luck. It's like Alexander Fleming, when he found penicillin out, said that he was plain lucky that the mold was there at the right time, at the right place, sitting on his windowsill. There were other players, the other people also trying to work, but we hit upon the idea of networking in a country, as I said, short of resources, and that's where we were lucky. Over time, we also realized that the issue that we were trying to handle was more of a social issue, and social issues take time. Social change takes time. One of the things that we needed to do was empower people, the stakeholders, the road users, the villagers who came to selflessly help an accident victim on highways. And that's where we went around sensitizing them, empowering them, telling them that even if you drop an accident victim to a hospital, nobody's going to hold you back, nobody's going to query you. That's a Delhi police advertisement, and that's pretty authentic. We also went around telling people that a doctor, a registered medical practitioner can under no law in the country refuse an accident victim. That's a huge tool to be empowered about. We started forming village task force on the highways. The highways near the villages near the highways, we picked up 5 able-bodied men and women, trained them in first aid, what to do and what not to do in an accident. We started sensitizing the Ministry of Road Transport towards creating a trauma committee, creating trauma care on the highways. We started talking to state governments because we realized the government is the biggest player in emergency management. And this is where we hit a golden jackpot. The Gujarat government became the first and still date the only state in the country to have an Emergency Services Act of its own, which means rules and regulations frame what an ambulance should have, what it should not have, what a hospital, if it says it's a 24 hours emergency service, should have a radiology, a pathology, a surgeon, a physician, 24/7. And we're trying to impress upon the Maharashtra government and the Rajasthan government next to have it. There's a photograph that has to do with our work. Sushmita and I and our team can always take credit for catalyzing this, but emergency medical services would not have been a national issue but for the gentleman on the left. History will judge him very differently perhaps for a lot of things, but for all of us in emergency medical services, it was he, President Kalam, and the gentleman beside him who made EMS a national issue. They had the resources, they had the reach, and this is what they did for the country. Today there are many other partners for many other state governments. 17 states in the country have a 108 service. You dial a number, an ambulance reaches, picks you up and takes you to the hospital. I know Jharkhand is still not there, but we are talking to the Jharkhand government, trying to sensitize it so that they can have a 108 service. As I come to the end of this, I go back to the first slide that I had for you. And if all of you understand the significance of this, that you've all gone through the pain, I want to share a story, a family story with you. Years back, a very close family member staying in Calcutta, and you know Calcutta is very busy, passed through a place, seeing a commotion, thinking that it must be one of those hartals, stirs, michils that go on in Calcutta. He reached home. What he did not know is, 1.5 hours later, he came to know that was his father-in-law bleeding to death on the road there. It's my request to all of you that if you understand this pain, please always intervene in an accident. Yet if you do not want to, for whatever reason it is, don't go away without seeing the face of the victim. Believe me, if it's somebody near to you, you'll regret it all your life. That's my plea to you. Don't go away without seeing the face of the victim. Thank you.